welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Zach, and here we talk about overlanding, gear, builds, DIY, all sorts of stuff related to modifying your vehicle. And this video particularly, I think is kind of a cool update video to some of the ones I've made in the past. I know a lot of you out there really like seeing the head unit videos. It's really not super related to like off-roading, but it's a really nice daily driver feature, or even on long trips. I really like having an updated head unit. The 4Runners from like 2010 to 2019 really had old-fashioned style head units compared to the newest released 4Runners, and so doing this upgrade really is a nice change and a nice luxury to have as well. I was pretty stoked. Dasaita actually reached out to me and they're like, hey, we've got actually a new version of the radio that you have. We see that you've been a big fan. Would you be interested in testing that out? And that's what this video is about. So the Dasaita head unit got like a new refresh. I'm not exactly sure what was refreshed. Just from looking at it on the outside, it doesn't look cosmetically like a massive refresh. Really, the only thing I've noticed on the exterior is the Dasaita word has been removed. So it looks a lot cleaner now. And originally, you know, it's got like an OEM plus fit. And so now with the Dasaita word removed, it's really going to look and be hard to decipher for those of you that have friends that really aren't into the car scene. I think they won't even realize this is an aftermarket head unit. So what we're gonna do first is we're gonna kind of jump into a top-down, kind of talk through what comes in the packaging, how to kind of decipher the packaging, and start prepping this head unit. So I'm not gonna go through a lot of the install and disassembly processes, because I've done like 3 or 4 head unit videos at this point, and a lot of them are getting repetitive as far as that like process, and it's really not too complicated. So I'll try and remember to link those videos all down below. So if you want to look at the prior version of the Dasaita, if you want to look at my long-term review of it, I'll have those videos down below. This video is going to be sort of an initial impressions of the head unit, getting it installed and just checking it out. We'll talk more about sort of its longevity in a future video. So first, yeah, let's jump into the top down, and then we'll get to installing this in the vehicle. So I've started to sort of unbox this. It's a little bit hard to fit within frame, so I'm just gonna take some of these products out of the box, and I'll sort of show you one by one / explain what comes in the packaging. So, all right, so we've got a couple of different bags that come in the packaging here. This is labeled, you can see that, way too bright. There we go. Like DX004, CB0051X, CB004X. See that? Those are all different harnesses. So if we go into the user manual here, I think it shows one of the first pages. Sorry, not the user manual. Here we've got a warranty, a registration card. Oh, we've got this install steps, which is really sweet. They've got this whole pamphlet. I think this is new, but I am really liking this direction. So if you look up here, we've got the DYX004 non-JBL and the CB005-1 with JBL. This is for the 2010 to 2013 4Runners. For 2014 to 2019 and 2022 to 2020, these are the ones we use down here. So what we're going to do is, I have a 2015, so we're going to use the CB004. So before we get too far into this, I'm just going to open up this bag and grab the harness that we're looking for. So this one here is labeled CB004-X. You can see it. That's the one we want. If we look through here, though, we've got a couple of different harnesses. We've got the DYX004. We'll set that one aside. And then we've got this one here, which is the CB005-1X. Set that aside as well. And then we've got this little USB adapter for one of the plugs. And this, I believe, is used for all vehicles. So those are the two we want. We'll put these two back in the bag because they are for 2010 to 2013 4Runners. The other bag has a bunch of miscellaneous adapters that all vehicles will use, so do what you want to do with each of these. I think we've got like a microphone, and we've got an antenna and some other things. So
we'll open up each of these individually and kind of check them out. Most of these, though, are the adapter plugs for the back of the head unit. We've got here some USB ports. We've got another USB port. This, I think, is like a Wi-Fi antenna. This right here is for audio. It's just a left and right channel, though, so that's kind of interesting. This right here, I believe this is GPS, if I had to guess. So this is Wi-Fi, this is GPS, these are plugs, and then this is the antenna. But we also have this little guy here, which is also sometimes the antenna for the Wi-Fi. I don't know, we'll figure it out. Okay, so let's set all of this aside here. We'll grab the actual head unit. I wanted to just show you all kind of what we got going on here, because as far as I can tell, home, music, back, navi, they're going to be almost the exact same screens. I think this is a performance bump and not so much like a visual change. But we got to get a bunch of stuff on mine moved over to the new one. So, oh, they took off Dasaita on the bottom, which actually looks really clean. That's probably the only thing I guess I've noticed so far that they've actually changed. One thing I am noticing, though, as we go here is some of these items have been changed slightly in like how they plug into the back of the radio. So that'll be kind of interesting to just compare as we work through this. I guess what we can do is we'll flip this over, set it onto here, so that's nice and protected. We've got this little SIM card tray or something. That's what this must be. I think this is, if you want to put a SIM card, you can actually get this attached to like data. These are the kind of things that I think aren't super useful for my use case, so I might just not plug them in to have less things behind the dash. Wi-Fi we will use because Apple CarPlay, I think, uses Bluetooth to set up, but then switches to Wi-Fi. So we're going to want to connect this Wi-Fi antenna to the back. Got a little built-in fuse there. I believe this is GPS. This is going to be for like built-in navigation. Some of these things you'll like want to route somewhere that can listen to you better, but I'm just not super... I've routed them before and I just don't know how much they actually help, so I've never been one to really care too much about like routing everything. Then we've got this big harness here, which is for the most part just an adapter harness. So we've got auxiliary in left and right. Front camera. Okay, here's front camera, Wi-Fi antenna, 4G antenna, GPS. Top one here is audio in and out, so that's going to be this plug. Plug that in there. USB. Here's USB 1. USB 1 is, I think, really all we need. So there we go. Got USB 1. Auxiliary input. This is going to be our front camera. We do want this. So I've got a front camera. Plug that in there. We might need to route that somewhere too. I'm just going to plug this adapter right into here because this we're going to plug in to a OEM harness. Set that down there. Microphone is pretty important because this is for when you're driving down the road. If you take any sort of call over the speaker, this is what picks up your audio. And I placed mine pretty poorly in my old setup, so I'm going to try and do a better job with this one. I'm thinking up on top of my dash is going to be where I want to put this. So that's pretty good. And then last but not least, this is going to get plugged in. This, that should go in there just like so. I think OEM radio antenna, which we got to plug over here, just like that. Ground cable, leave dangle on the side there. So this is the camera roulette, but I believe one of these two camera plugs will plug into these. So we've got video auxiliary and we've got cam in. So camera in will come from one of these over here, and then we've got subwoofer. I've got a subwoofer to plug in. This is Ethernet, this is that. This will set aside, so that's good. Auxiliary left in will plug right here. Auxiliary right in will plug here. And then these two cameras, it's just, I don't know which one it is, but the camera in over here on this, we have to figure out which one is which. I will let you know on the screen which one of these we will use for the actual camera. One of these harnesses has a bunch of blue and gray wires in the camera plug, and one of these has a gray wire and brown wire, and that has another camera plug. So we'll figure out which one is which. Next thing we got to do now is bring over a bunch of things from my head unit, like my Rago Fabrication dash mount, my hazard lights, and some other things. So this is looking pretty good. Now I'm going to set it aside so that we can pull some parts off my old head unit to put onto the new one. So before we get too far, we're going to disconnect this whole Rago Fabrication mount. So that's what we're going to do first. I wish this was a little bit easier to install on the bench, but it's something I've always installed in the vehicle. So once we take this off, I'm just going to have to wait to install it again in the car. Okay, so the dash mount should be disconnected entirely. It's just 4 small screws, so we've got that pulled off. All right, now the little clips on the sides of this head unit that hold on the brackets. Sorry, they're not clips, they're screws. They're 2 8mm. We'll just pop those off. I think there are screws that are included with these, but I just used the ones that came off the OEM head unit. So, you know, you're noticing that I'm switching Dasaita head units as opposed to removing my OEM one. But my original video has switching to from the OEM one, so go check that out if you're really curious. Okay, so we've got both brackets off. That's a lot of what we need. Now we just need to grab some flatheads so we can pull out the hazards and some of these plastic pieces. They've got this little tray up top here we got to pull out. We've got some clips and whatnot, so this shouldn't be too difficult. Just got to keep going. There's just 2 little screws on the top. Pulling this out is not overly complicated if I remember, and it gives you some nice space for working on everything else. So I pulled this out, I think, pretty early on. Okay, so I've started moving a couple things over. I've got these brackets bolted up now. They were a little bit of a tight fit, so you may need to egg out some of those holes just to make sure they'll fit. I put on these little yellow clips. I'm going to start putting in the vents here. I've got the hazard light put in with its harness. I got this ground cable hooked up to this bolt on this bracket. So we've got a couple things done. One thing to note is right here, there's like little clip spots from the other head unit that I haven't brought over yet. I don't remember whether they came already on it or if I need to relocate it. It seems a little silly, but I might relocate these from my old head unit. I don't think they're necessary. Like, they're not providing that much structural help with the clips. These bolts are really the big thing, but I suppose I'll move it over. And same with the little dial labels. We've got to pull those off of the other one. So we'll switch these back again. I'm going to grab a couple more parts and then we'll keep moving. Clips go on those 2 spots there, and then what we're gonna do is put in these little labels. So flip this around here like so. A lot of these pieces just screw into plastic, so don't over tighten. These are like, you know, 2 foot-pounds of torque. You don't want these getting loose or else they'll rattle, so just be very gentle. Okay, so now that we've got that, we can pop in the 2 vents, which just have a number of clips. Alright, got that installed. Just go slow so that you don't break any clips. That one went in a lot smoother than the other one. All right, and then last but not least, got this here. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is get the drill bits we need sorted for 2 sets of screws for the dash mount, because that's basically all we have left to do here. We're gonna have to mount this up in the car, but then figure out where to place the dash mount. Plugging all this in, most of it has like a unique harness, so you just keep plugging and plugging until everything is plugged in correctly. So the other thing I might do is stick my microphone up here. We'll see. I don't know. I might even put the microphone on my dash mount, so we'll kind of toy around with that once we get actually out to the vehicle. All right, well, I think that's basically good to go. Let's just figure out what size drill bit we need. And we're drilling plastic, so this is gonna be easy, but 3/16 and then 5/32. Whatever you do, if you go small, then it might crack the plastic or it might dig in and create threads. So, you know, pros and cons to both options. But all right, that's everything. We've got our drill bits here. Now we just got to go out to the vehicle and actually get this installed. For starters, what we're gonna do is just start plugging in everything that we should. Like to do now, before we get too much farther, is connect up the front camera power, which is tiny. Okay, so we've done a little mock-up here. I got everything plugged in. See here, if we turn on the vehicle, if it powers on, fingers crossed. All right, we're on navigation system 12 instead of 10, so that's an upgrade. Powering up for the first time, so it might be a little longer than normal. There we go. We go into reverse. Got our backup camera, which is completely blocked by the C4 bumper. Wow, this interface is really clean. Okay. Now I just got to set up Apple CarPlay, but so far, so good. I do wonder if you could upgrade to this software using the old Dasaita head unit, if you're just to die for this, like, you know, GUI that's going on here that looks pretty clean and minimal. But so far, I like what I'm seeing. Okay, now we got to work on getting the dash mount set up, and then, yeah, we should be off to the races. So really the bulk of this is just transporting over all the different things from the OEM head unit. Other than that, the actual install is just a couple bolts down here, lining up the clips, and away you go. All right, so I got my dash mount all mounted up, and now I can start putting these screws back in. These brackets didn't line up before and they don't line up now, but they're very pliable and it doesn't really worry me a whole lot. These also really don't need to be torqued, just good and snug. There. Okay, so we got this all mounted up. Scan gauge. I put my little microphone thingy up here on top of my dash mount. I'm gonna stick that down if it sounds good. If it doesn't, I'll move it again. And then we've got our AC controls to put back in here. If you don't know how to assemble or disassemble this area on the 4Runner, I've got multiple videos going over it. I'll link my other Dasaita videos down below. But this has just got a bunch of clips on it, and it clips right into here just like this. It's that simple. You don't even have to remove this area down here where the shifters are. You just grab on the sides here and pull. It pops out, and then you unhook the harness that holds and powers the AC controls. So that's everything. Now I just got to configure everything on this screen. So let's power up the vehicle and check it all out. Okay, so hopefully this comes in pretty clear. Let's see if no. Okay, so we're on the home screen here. It's just been booted up. What I'm gonna do first is just go into the settings here. And, first of all, the touchscreen feels better. I don't know why, but it feels better, less laggy. Date and time, GPS, automatic update, set time automatically. Okay, so date and time are correct. That's good. Backup, reset, all this should be fine. I try to not change any interface stuff on here, like I turn automatic updates off, any of that sort of stuff, if I can, because I want it to work and continue to work, and I don't want stuff to get all weird. So, well, maybe I'll figure out a way to update the background with something cool, but for now, we'll leave it. I don't think any of this really matters either. We're gonna click the Apple CarPlay button. Driver position is left, background connection on. Gonna go on my phone and select car kit. The pin up there is 0000. Click pair. It says it's connected on my phone, so in theory this should go pretty fast. On my phone it says use CarPlay. So I've selected that. Appearance, always dark. Wallpaper. I think that's basically everything. I mean, I'm going to just test out the sound, I guess, but I'll mute it because I don't want you guys to listen. All right, well, we got everything installed. All right, I think that installation is a wrap. At this point now, I just got to put my shifter knobs back on and we're done. We're good to go.
All right, so after getting it installed and testing it for a few days, a couple things to note. On the previous head unit, the Bluetooth seemed to be a lot worse than the CarPlay audio. So if you weren't using like Android Auto or CarPlay, I don't think the audio is like as loud or something like that. I really don't understand why this is the case, but that was just my initial like reaction when I was testing the other head unit. And I don't think really anything has changed since using the old head unit to this one now. If anything, the Apple CarPlay is a little bit better than before as far as audio goes. But I really only plan to use this head unit with Apple CarPlay. The rest of the features really aren't going to be used, in my opinion, because I've got my dash mount, I've got my phone there, so if I got to run maps and all that sort of stuff, it's just nice to run it right off the phone rather than have to interface with Apple CarPlay or try and figure out like how to install some stuff on the actual head unit. So that's kind of my use case for this. If you want to really go hog wild with customizing the head unit like an Android tablet, you definitely can. It looks like you could get a SIM card for it, and it's got onboard memory and all those sorts of things. So if you want to install some apps and all those sorts of stuff, you could. A couple other things to note: the dials for tuning and like volume all seem to be exactly fine. I didn't need to even calibrate the steering wheel buttons. They all just worked right out the gate for me. The screen definitely seems brighter, so I think there was a screen brightness upgrade. It seems like it's a different panel. One thing I will note is like with the certain viewing angles, you can sometimes almost see like a layering of the screen where it's hitting the different spots in the glass. So that's something to note, but the black levels in this screen seem a lot better, and it definitely seems brighter and crisper. So, you know, that's nice. It's got an updated OS. It's also, you know, on my original Dasaita head unit, there was something kind of funky with the emulator software when I was trying to run Apple CarPlay, but everything for this came and right out the gate packaging worked perfectly. So that was great, and all that seems to be really updated. So if you're buying this now towards the post date of this video, you're going to get pretty up-to-date software and firmware as far as I understand. So that's kind of a nice benefit. Other than that, though, there wasn't really a whole lot different. The user interface is a little bit cleaner, but that just comes with updating the OS. I think you could probably update the OS as well if you wanted to on your older version. But I presume that this tablet, screen, whatever you want to call this, has an updated CPU of some kind. And so the newer OS is likely optimized for this particular computer, and the older systems, they're probably optimized for the older OS. So that's why I like to typically just turn off automatic updates and all those things and just keep it the way that it is, because this device is in theory going to be basically offline. So it really shouldn't, you know, be too prone to some of those things, and it keeps the software all running nice and smooth. So those are my initial impressions. I want to play more around with the audio. The amplifier and all that stuff in it seems to be great when using Apple CarPlay. I have no complaints, and my subwoofer interfaces perfectly with it, so I haven't had any problems with that as well. A couple things to note just with using these systems: the Apple CarPlay can be a bit buggy, and people know this using Apple CarPlay on any vehicle. So if you're having issues with that, there might be a chance that it's not the actual head unit, but it's some weird glitch in the Apple CarPlay. One thing I noticed in mine was, on occasion, Google Maps, it like lowers the audio volume for a temporary period of time when it like makes an announcement and then brings it back. Sometimes it would lower it and then not bring it back, which was kind of frustrating, because then all of a sudden your music was like half volume. And I couldn't figure out anywhere to like disable that lowering of the volume under announcements, just because then like the Google Maps would be just shouting over the music, which would have been kind of funny. But I was trying to figure out a way to get around that bug, and I never found anything. But I think just muting your Google Maps helps. So that's like a bug that I noticed. Another thing I noticed is there's sort of this handoff that occurs when you turn on your vehicle. Your phone connects with Bluetooth, and then the Bluetooth converts to like a Wi-Fi connection for wireless CarPlay between your phone and the head unit. And so if I'm ever close enough to my house that I'm on the house Wi-Fi, sometimes there seems to be like a fight there where it will try and decide like which is more dominant, the Wi-Fi from the house or the Wi-Fi connection for wireless Apple CarPlay. And that can sometimes bump a connection when you're sitting in your driveway. So if you really want, like, you can unlock your phone and maybe disconnect from your Wi-Fi temporarily, like don't forget the network, but just like disconnect. And that'll sometimes help. Otherwise, the moment I'm away from my house, typically the phone will connect. That was something that I ran into on the old unit, but I think there might even be some sort of override or something now, because every time I've started my car with this newer unit now, that doesn't happen. But these are all just like minor inconveniences, and I figured out the workarounds for them. So other than that, everything else seemed to work great. You know, Apple CarPlay is working as normal. So All right, well, thank you so much for watching. Those are kind of just my initial impressions with the head unit, but I've been a huge fan of the Dasaita head units. This touchscreen might be also a little more responsive than the other one, but I didn't do kind of a side-by-side, but it definitely feels a little bit touchier, which is just nicer kind of haptic resolution. So I really like these Dasaita head units. There's a number of head unit options out there, but these Dasaita head units have been trustworthy. They are really a good sort of price range. You know, they're not going to be like $1,000 as far as I know. The previous unit was like around $500 to $600, and hopefully this one will be around that price range going forward as well. But the like mix of features here I think is really nice. You've got the ability to add a front camera in. You've got the ability to add that subwoofer. Some head units don't have front cameras. You've got the ability to change your volume with an actual physical knob, which I really like. And you can click the knob to mute. You've got that tuning knob as well if you're really into using the radio. And then you've got some physical buttons on the screen as well, which I also really like. So, you know, having all of these physical features, but then also having that massive screen is really great. And don't get me wrong, anytime a friend gets in my car, they see the big screen. It looks very similar to like a Range Rover screen, and it's just sharp. It looks great. And with Apple CarPlay, they do like a side-by-side split. So the fact that it's a wide rectangle actually works great, because then each screen on each side is like a nice sized head unit. Essentially, one side of the Apple CarPlay is like equivalent to the size of the screen on the old head unit. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Let me know if you've got any questions down below. Otherwise, Dasaita's got pretty good customer support, so always reach out to them too if you've got questions. It seems like they include all the harnesses you need in this new kit, so some people had issues with the 2010 to 2013 models, but it doesn't seem like that might be an issue going forward because they include everything depending upon what 5th gen 4Runner you have. So, all right, well, that's going to be it for this video. Go snag one of these. They have them in black and silver, and I'll link everything down below, and hopefully that'll make it easy for you. So, thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Dasaita, for supporting me, and I will catch you all in the next video.